Welcome to Talking Buffalo, featuring conversations with guests from around the world of sports, media, pop culture, and all things Buffalo. With your host, Patrick Moran.
All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo sports talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Big thank you to everyone out there, as always, for watching, for listening, for following, for subscribing. You guys are the best. I appreciate you very much. Today's episode is presented by Sunny Reds. 1841 Abbott Road, sunny Lackawanna, just minutes away from Highmark Stadium. And look, if I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. Sunny Reds, not just one of the most underrated places in all of Western New York to go for wings, pizza, and other great food and vibes. In my opinion, my humble opinion, it is the most underrated place in all of Western New York, especially for wings, but also brick oven pizza, burgers, fish fries, good drink menu, great vibes. Love that place. A big supporter of this show. So please, if you support this show and you get a chance, go out there and support Sunny Reds. As for today's show, in just a minute, I'm going to play an interview I just wrapped up with Jay Skurski from the Buffalo News. Of course, Jay covers the Buffalo Bills for the News. It was a fun conversation. Went for about a half hour or so. Really insightful, entertaining as always. Love Jay's one of my favorite guests. One of my good people too, man. We talked about Micah Hyde, of course. Big news on Wednesday. Micah Hyde finally signs with the Bills, or at least on the practice squad anyway. So I get some reaction from Jay on that. We talk about Demar Hamlin and how, if at all, the addition of Hyde may affect him. Some reaction from some of his teammates. And then we kind of turn our attention to what's been obviously a great Buffalo Bills season up to this point. I play a clip for Jay early in the season, or I should say right before the season started. I had Jay and also Nate Gary from GR with me at a live show in Imperial Pizza. And we did a Bills season preview episode. And Jay said something that resonated with me then. I remembered it. And as the season played out, I had to make sure that I got this clip. Jay talked about the burden of expectations, this team kind of being lifted and being gone, might play to the Bills' advantage, which it has, of course. And also he talked about Josh Allen and that stupid anonymous players poll that had him as the most overrated player in the league, and how, in Jay's own words, he called it catnip for Josh Allen. And boy, oh boy, has it been catnip, but he's been eating away at it. Josh Allen just named again AFC Offensive Player of the Week for his efforts against Frisco. And Josh Allen, the same guy who now is the prohibitive betting favorite to win NFL MVP. So we play that clip. We talk about the unselfishness of this team and how it's authentic and it's legit. Jay talks about, being on the inside, being around these guys. He's got a great story. I want you guys to hear this. A quote from Von Miller talking about Greg Rizzo. And I feel like it really, sets an example for what this team is all about this year. I was kind of blown away to hear it from Von Miller myself. Jay tells a really good story on that. So we talk Bills. Got to forewarn you, last 7 or 8 minutes or so of the interview, I sent Jay down a rabbit hole because we switched gears and finished up talking about the Buffalo Sabres, kind of like killing the vibe over the last handful of minutes or so. Look, the Sabres stink, man. They stink. Jay knows it. I know it. You know it if you care. Maybe you don't care, but they stink. And I think I may have ruined Jay's night. Like, once the interview was over, I think I might have ruined his night and sent him down this rabbit hole. But anyway, he had some really strong, poignant, and most importantly, in my opinion anyway, really accurate takes, not just about this team right now, but the state of the Buffalo Sabres as a whole. And let's just be real here, folks. It's not pretty. It's not pretty at all. But the Buffalo Bills season indeed is pretty. So without further ado, like I said, most of this conversation revolves around the Buffalo Bills. Not going to waste any more time. Let's just get to it right now. Here it is, folks. My conversation with Buffalo News, Buffalo Bills beat reporter, my guy, Jay Skurski. All right, I am joined right now by my good friend from the Buffalo News, Jay Skurski. What's going on, buddy? It feels like a long, long time ago from those summer nights when I'd come up and watch you play a little bit of softball with my kid at Lawson Park. Good weather, good vibes during the summer. It is cold out right now, man. How you doing?
I got the beanie on. I just got done shoveling the driveway. It feels like a long, long time from those baseball diamonds or softball diamonds. So, yeah, looking forward to getting back out there.
Yeah.
It'll be here soon enough. I mean, we're already into December. We're almost at Christmas, so it's I've only had to shovel once, so I can't complain too much.
Did you kind of get a sense, like I did, that in November? So we get to Halloween, and it's like, wow, it's still really nice out. And it's like, all right, well, then we get through a lot of November, and it's like, where's the cold? Where's the storms? They're not coming. You kind of felt like, we're going to pay for this later on, and December has become later on, and it's well, you're in the North House, man. I don't know who I'm.
Listen, I was gloating. Okay, I was texting my buddies, sending them pictures of the green grass, and I went to sleep last night with green grass, and then I woke up this morning. I was like, oh, all right, well, it's coming back to me now, full circle. I got what I deserved because we had more snow than I was anticipating. I didn't even know it was going to snow last night. I certainly didn't know we were going to have as much as we did. So I was not prepared for that. Didn't have time to shovel the driveway before leaving in the morning. So, you get home from practice and it's dark at 5:00 and you got to be out there shoveling anyways. You got to grind, right? You're grinding out there. So,
well, that's why I got a 21-year-old son. He's the one out there shoveling, and he's doing the
grinding. Send him over here when he's done. Yeah, exactly.
We got a new snowblower, and it literally came the day before all the snow. We got 2 feet of snow over the weekend here in Lake West Seneca, Orchard Park border. But anyway, you mentioned practice. All right, so let's start there. A significant news day for the Buffalo Bills on Wednesday here after literally months of speculation about Micah Hyde. Will he sign with the practice squad or a team? When's it going to happen? Is it going to happen? Well, it did happen on Wednesday. Were you a little bit surprised to hear the news? Like, what was your gut telling you about Micah Hyde? Like maybe from the start of the season through where we're at right now. Let's start there.
Well, I think at the start of the season, it would have not surprised me as much as it did today, only in the sense that, it seems like the position's kind of been solidified. I think Taylor Rapp and Demar Hamlin have done a nice job. I don't think either of them are in danger of losing their job. I'd be surprised. I guess I can't say that for sure since Micah Hyde was brought here for a reason. We'll see what that reason ends up being, whether it is just veteran depth for the postseason. Teams have done that in the past. The Bills have done that in the past with, the change in practice squad rules in the NFL over recent years has allowed veterans like Micah Hyde and other players of that caliber to kind of hook on with practice squads and to provide depth for the postseason run. And so, talking with him today or, listening to his press conference today, it sounds like he's in a really good place physically. He said he lost a little bit of weight because he's been doing a ton of running. So I'm sure that the Bills will want to see him put that back on. But I don't think it would take him long, obviously, to know the scheme. He'll know that day one. And to get into football shape, to be ready to play a game, I don't think he's going to need a ton of time. So, what are my expectations for him? I think right now they're low. Sean McDermott did his best to sort of pour cold water on the idea that Micah Hyde was going to be out there starting against the Rams. I don't think it's anything like that. But I will be interested to see how this plays out. 5 weeks is kind of a long time, in terms of, they've got the division wrapped up, but we got a long time before we get to the playoffs here. So they've got some flexibility. They've got the benefit of time to get Hyde in here to see where he's at physically, to really get a gauge of that. And then I guess ultimately decide like, hey, are we best suited by going with Rapp and Hamlin as we have all year? Or do we really want to try to maybe work Micah Hyde into one of those spots? I can't entirely rule it out, but I would say I'd find that move to be unlikely as of right now.
It feels like on the surface anyway, it feels like, all right, this guy's insurance. He's on the practice squad. I shouldn't just say this guy. He's more than just a guy. He's been more than just a guy for the Buffalo Bills for a long time, but it is a comforting feeling. Like I was telling some people like on social media who were not many. I mean, overwhelmingly, the reception was positive to Micah Hyde, but there were a couple people, who didn't like it. And I'm like, don't look at it as Micah Hyde versus Demar Hamlin right now. Look at it as Micah Hyde versus Kareem Jackson, or a safety that's on the practice squad. Just an upgrade in terms of, experience, leadership, knowing the system, and all the things like that. For people who know about the news, everybody knows about the news. If you're a Bills fan, you obviously know that Micah Hyde joined the practice squad on Wednesday, but not everybody got to hear any quotes from after practice or from any of the players. Obviously, you were at the stadium on Wednesday. Probably a rhetorical question, but what was the sentiment from some of the players that you got a chance to be around on Wednesday about Micah?
Yeah, it's exactly what you'd expect. I mean, they're all thrilled to have him back. They all loved him as a teammate. They all believe in him. I mean, he was a captain for this team. He's going to go down in history as part of the best safety tandem that this team has ever seen, along with Jordan Poyer. I firmly believe that, even though, I haven't been around to see some of those teams in the 60s or 70s. I can't imagine that there was a safety duo that was better, both in terms of on the field production and longevity for the team. And so I think everybody loves having them back around. And to your point about the leadership, I don't think that's that's not a bad thing, right? And we've seen the Bills do this. As I mentioned earlier, John Brown and Cole Beasley come to mind. They came back in a practice squad role for this franchise. Now they ended up playing a little bit, Beasley a little bit more than Brown, but it strikes me as kind of a similar situation. Although I would even put Hyde at a level above those two in terms of contributions to the team. And so, whether it ends up being just leadership and just a veteran insurance policy, as you put it, I don't see the downside to it. I mean, I haven't seen any of the negative reaction on social media. I've been busy at, doing interviews and writing and talking to people and things like that. So I haven't spent a ton of time on social media, but I don't get the downside. I mean, why would you have a problem with this movie? He's on the practice squad. What's the big deal, right?
Right. Your assessment of Demar Hamlin this season. Early in the year, I was not a fan, and I was kind of vocal about it, and led to some disputes. So we'll just put it that way. But he's played, I think, since maybe even the Tennessee game. I think he's really turned it around, and he's played well. You see the shortcomings out there with him. I think his lack of athleticism is a problem. Like if he takes a bad angle or gets caught heavy-footed, he's in trouble. Mm-hmm. But he's got a nose for the football. He's been around the ball. He's got 2 picks. He should have had 3. He's become a much more sure tackler, too, and a willing, engaging tackler, I feel like, as the season has went on. But where do you feel Demar Hamlin is at right now? The teammates, how they feel about him as a starter? And do you think, I mean, this is speculation, obviously, at this point. This just literally happened today as we're talking. But do you think that Demar might get a sense that his job may ultimately, before the season's over, be in trouble?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think that's probably something that Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane had to weigh when they were making a move like this, right? Because you don't want to. We're this deep into the year. The vibes are good. They're 10-2. You don't want to upset the room in any way. And I'm sure that Demar Hamlin's teammates, both those who were here for what he went through in Cincinnati and the aftermath of that, and those who are newer, can fully appreciate how much this guy has worked to get into the position that he's in. Has he been perfect? No, of course not. He has had some moments. And to your point, I think there's been times he's taken some poor angles. Any safety in the league, you could, turn on tape and probably find that, right? Is he a Pro Bowler? No, he's not. But I think he's developed into a guy that, has a role. I mean, you got 53 guys on a team. You've got 22 starters. Not all of them are going to be all pros. Not all of them are going to be Pro Bowlers. I think, obviously, I mean, miles and miles of copy have been written about Demar Hamlin, right? And what he went through. But it is fairly remarkable that this guy is now a contributing starter in the NFL. I mean, if you think back to where we were in the spring, everybody thought Mike Edwards was going to be the starter, or everybody thought Cole Bishop was going to be the starter. Demar Hamlin has kept both of those guys off the field. He's got Mike Edwards isn't even in the league anymore, and Cole Bishop is a special teams player for this team. And there has not been any sign at all that that's going to change. So I think Hamlin deserves a lot of credit for, the work that he's put in to earn the position that he has. And I think that's the key word there. I think he has earned that position.
Let me ask you a question that I think in this case, you have to cover the team. You have to be around the team to have more insight when it comes to this. I think there's a portion of the fan base who are in love with the concept of Micah Hyde being a Buffalo Bill again. Look, we're getting old, man. It gets hard to remember things from a year ago, especially me. But like Micah Hyde 2 years ago, this wouldn't even be like a debate. It would be like, as soon as Micah's up to speed, Micah Hyde is your starting safety. What we saw last year, at least from what I can remember, was not the same Micah Hyde that we've seen the 5 previous years when Micah Hyde was playing at a Pro Bowl or even an all-pro caliber level. Like, his game last year was very so-so. I mean, if we're going to sit here, or if I'm going to sit here and critique Demar Hamlin and some of the mistakes that he's made this season, you could kind of go back last year with Demar Hamlin or with Micah Hyde and say the same. So what do you remember from Micah Hyde as a player from last year? And also, two-part question here, even if he doesn't play, and this is where I said, somebody's got to cover the team and be around the guys would know this better. But even if he doesn't even play it down for the team on the field, how much does his leadership and his voice and his presence in the locker room, do you feel like that is something that's going to matter?
Yeah, I do. As much as it can matter for a player that's on the practice squad, right? You have to, I think we have to keep that in mind. And maybe he does join the 53. We'll see, we'll see where it goes. But having his voice in the locker room is never going to be a bad thing. Having his leadership in the locker room is never going to be a bad thing. So whether that ends up being his only role and his ultimate role, I think it's fine. I wouldn't have an issue with it. I think he'll do well in that regard. As a player, the thing that stands out to me, and I know this is not exactly what you're asking, but just what he went through physically to play. I remember talking to him a few times where he wasn't sure that he was going to make it through the season. That neck injury, those stingers really could have popped up at just about any time. And the taxation that it put on his body to get ready to go week in and week out, I think was too much for him, quite frankly. And I think it was the reason that we're sitting here on December 4th talking to him just coming back now, because he wasn't built to last another full NFL season. And if that was the case last year, and I think it was at times, naturally that would be reflected in his on the field play. And so I think, he has had a long off season now, obviously, 10 months here to start to feel better. And I think naturally that's what's happened. And I think that's why he's open to this idea, is because his body is healed. And so he was at a point where his body was healing probably barely enough to get on the field. And then maybe by the end of the year, really not healing enough as fast as it needed to.
One more Micah Hyde thing, then we'll move on to a couple other things while I got you here. You let me know if this scenario feels reasonable to you. And this is a non-injury scenario. I mean, if there's an injury to Demar Hamlin and Micah Hyde's up to speed, I think it's pretty obvious that Micah Hyde would be the guy who goes in. Sean would trust him in that situation. But let's just say there are no injuries. If you are pro Micah Hyde and you say you're convinced that, hey, get him up to speed and I think he'll be better than Demar Hamlin, let's just say that that's the camp that somebody is in. Mm-hmm. He doesn't, obviously he's not seeing the field this week. He doesn't see the field against Detroit either. Maybe he comes up, he gets an elevation against New England because they play them twice. Maybe he just plays a series or two. Kind of maybe even ditto in week 17, just getting his feet wet, playing out there, getting a couple series. Maybe by, week 17 against the Jets in Orchard Park, almost a borderline platoon situation for him and Demar. And then say week 18, all right, he's up to speed. He's gone out there. He's played. He looks good. He gets that start. And you see what he looks like as a starter for 4 quarters in that finale against New England, which I believe is in Foxborough. And if he looks the part and he's playing well, he could be the starter going forward for this team in the playoffs. How feasible do you think that is? To me, that would be the best, if you're a pro Micah Hyde, the best non-injury realistic scenario. Or is that just not realistic to you at this point in the year?
Well, I think I go back to what I said at the beginning. I would consider it unlikely, but I can't rule it out entirely. He's here for a reason. I don't think he's here strictly for, vibes in the locker room. I really don't. I don't think he's here for leadership or chemistry in the locker room. I think this team is as close as maybe any that I've covered. I don't know that they needed that. I don't know if they needed that from Micah Hyde. I think what they needed was probably more. They felt like they needed more veteran insurance. And so yeah, I can't entirely rule that out. Again, I think it's a sticky situation that Sean McDermott would have to navigate with Demar Hamlin and kind of making that move and explaining it, not just to Demar, but to his teammates who are wondering, we're sitting here at 10-2 and we're going to make changes to our starting lineup. Like, what are we doing this for? And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the players who are obviously looking at the tape a lot closer than I am are looking at it going, we got to upgrade here. That's possible. So yeah, I can't rule it out entirely. I would say this about whether that move was made. Sean McDermott deserves trust in the decision that he makes in putting out a secondary. The guy can flat out coach secondary, right? He is terrific at it. He has turned Dane Jackson into a player and Levi Wallace into a player and Demar Hamlin into a player. Taylor Rapp has done well. This scheme works. Sean McDermott knows how to coach the secondary. I would put my trust in him to say he's got a feel for who would be best in the playoffs, whether that be Hamlin or Hyde or Bishop, for that matter. Whoever it is that he decides to put out on the field, I would trust that the head coach knows what he's doing in that regard.
And for what little it's worth, too, I do want to put it out there to the public. I'm rooting for Demar Hamlin. I'm not going to suddenly hope Demar Hamlin starts playing bad. I think he's played a lot better as the season went on. I like Demar Hamlin as a person, and I think he's been adequate with room for improvement as a starter. So I would like to see that continue. I agree with you, too. You said they're not just bringing in Micah Hyde for vibes. And I say that in part because they already got good vibes on this football team, which brings me to, I'm going to play a clip. This is about a minute long. This is yourself and Nate Gary. I'm going to give you a little bit of shine here, Jay. We did a live show in Imperial Pizza. It was our Bill season preview, and we were talking about the team out on the patio there. And you had a point. It resonated with me some then. And months later, I think this is really, really proven to be true. So let me play that clip. Let me get it up there and see what
it's gone. And there has been a freeing feeling around this team, really going back to the first day of training camp. It seems like they're loose. I think the way, and I don't want to make this entirely about Diggs, right? I think the Super Bowl preseason favorite thing weighed on them
100%,
and that's gone. Right, they're the underdogs now. They're going to be underdogs in more games this year than they probably have been in the last 2 or 3 years. That is not a bad thing for a team. The oldest motivational ploy in sports is nobody believed in us.
Yep.
Right, and they get to use that a lot this year. I've said this to a lot of people over the last couple of weeks. The best thing that's happened to this team in the last 2 weeks is that anonymous player survey that called Josh Allen the most overrated quarterback.
No kidding.
You don't think that is going to fuel him? And you don't think he's going to have something to prove this year if he didn't already? That is that is catnip for a professional athlete. And Josh Allen is going to eat that up.
There you go, man. That was just before the season started. Catnip for Josh Allen. Josh Allen, who, by the way, was named the AFC Offensive Player of the Week again and is, at this point, the overwhelming betting favorite right now to win AL MVP. You kind of go back, you revisit that, and that really turned out to be true. The combination of Josh Allen's motivation, people saying he was overrated, a lot of people picking the Jets, Miami, a lot of people thought the Bills were going to be a third-place team. The burden to get the ball to Stephon Diggs and feed him and keep him happy, that all felt gone. A lot of the things you talked about on that show over the summer have really come to fruition, ain't it?
Yeah, I'll take a little victory lap here. No, right?
Yeah, it's nice, dude.
Yeah, no, I do think that, I think that, the idea that they didn't go into the season with a ton of expectations, right? I'll freely admit, I'll sit here and say that I didn't have them at 10-2 or anywhere close. I think I had them at 10 wins for the year.
You did. On my show, you did.
I was right around. I was back and forth between 11-6, 10-7, all off season, and they have. I am happy to admit I was completely wrong. I was totally wrong. Now I was right about a couple of things. I was right about getting younger didn't have to be necessarily a bad thing, and that has proven to be true. I was right about Houston not looking that great and being that, being that it team in the offseason, right? I think they've struggled. I was right about the Jets stinking. Now I was wrong about Miami, right? I thought Miami was going to be good. Obviously the Tua injury factored into that. So I guess my point there is that, we all, kind of envision how we see things playing out, and the Bills have exceeded my expectations by a lot. And there's the credit goes, it starts with McDermott. I think he's done his best coaching job. I think it's a crime that he's not getting more run for coach of the year than what he is. I think he's getting punished because he's got a great quarterback, which isn't fair. Andy Reid falls into that camp too. These guys with great quarterbacks don't ever get considered for coach of the year, and it's just crazy to me. Allen deserves obviously a ton of credit in terms of his on the field production. Statistically, it's not going to be his best season, but I think leadership wise, I think setting the tone for the organization, obviously the turnover worthy plays, I think, he's cut down on those somewhat. And the turnovers themselves, he's definitely cut down on.
Sure.
So he's taking care of the football. He's doing what's asked of him. They've developed a running game. They've developed an offensive line that I think is probably the best that they've had for Josh Allen. So all of these things have kind of come together, and they're getting healthier at the right time, which you love to see, right? Because they're getting guys back as opposed to, knock on wood, losing guys and having that conversation right now. So it's all come together, and it's led to this, a 10-2 record and a very real chance at the number one seed in the conference.
You're around this team a lot. Does it feel different to you? Because from the outside to me, they'll say things, you say things to reporters or for the cameras, and they're not always the most genuine things. But to me, this feels like a team who truly doesn't care who's the star. They really don't. Like whether it's been Ray Davis, it's been Matt Collins, it's been Dalton Kincaid, it's been Keon Coleman, all these guys, I get a sense that is genuine when they say everybody eats. I think that they don't, Mari Cooper, I don't think they care, dude, who's the star, who's got the big numbers, who's got the most receiving yards that game. You get that sense that's how this team feels different to me. And you could also make a case on a defensive side of the ball. Whoever makes the big plays, who cares, as long as somebody makes it. You kind of get that sense with this team this year.
100%. I think it's a great point. I think, in terms of where I rank this team, we did a roundtable during the bye week at the Buffalo News. So it was Mark and Ryan and Catherine and myself, and answering some questions. And one of them was, is this the best team of the Josh Allen era? And my answer at that time was no. I thought that the COVID era team was the best I had seen. They won, I want to say 11 of 12 games. The only loss in that time was the Hail Murray against Arizona. I remember the game against San Francisco, which was actually played in Arizona, texting some buddies and saying, I think the Bills are going to win the Super Bowl. It was at that time that I thought they were the best team in the NFL. I'm getting there with this team. I'm not there right now. I don't know that I would predict them to win the Super Bowl, but I can't ignore what they're doing, right? I can't ignore what's happening and the way that they're able to win games in a multitude of different ways, right? They can win with a strong rushing attack, as we just saw. They can win with Josh Allen being Superman, which they do frequently. They could probably even win a defensive-minded game. I don't know. You don't want to see that. You don't want to have to play that type of game. Right. But I think with where their defense is at, they potentially could do that. To your point, though, about everybody being bought in, I can tell you from being around those guys, cameras off, microphones off, 100% bought in, as much as I've ever seen it in a team. And I'm thinking mostly of the offense, but I think it's true of the defense too. I mean, I talked to Von Miller after the game about the sack that Rousseau had, which I thought was excellent against Purdy the other night. Runs him down across the field, just terrific athleticism. Well, Von Miller made that play, right? Von Miller flushed Purdy out of the pocket. I shouldn't say made the play, but he started the play, right? He flushes Purdy out of the pocket. This is Von Miller. This is Von Miller we're talking about, probably next to Josh Allen, the most recognizable name on the team. It's me and him talking, and there isn't anyone else around. And his quote to me was, "We don't give a shit who makes the play, right? We just want to make the play." And that was genuine, right? That was as genuine as I felt, and this is coming from a guy that's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer who has made his, he's rich beyond his wildest dreams because of what he's accomplished individually on the field. And if he's bought in, I think that filters down to everybody. So you've got Josh Allen bought in, you got Von Miller bought in, and, from the rest, and it starts there and it kind of works its way through the rest of the roster.
I got a handful of minutes left with you. The good vibes are about to go out the window. because we're going to switch. We're going to switch gears here. I don't even want to get into my stories about the Buffalo Sabres of this past game against Colorado, but I did notice. So I jumped on Twitter. I was out for dinner with a couple friends, and I'm watching it on the TV at the bar. Shout out Ebenezer Ale House. Anyway, and the Sabres are up 4-0. We all know how that played out. But I go home and I'm in front of my TV and I got my laptop up and I'm on Twitter. And you are one of the few Bills reporters who enjoy, well, I don't know if it's enjoyable, but you watch the Sabres play. You go to some games. You're a fan. You cover the Bills for a living. You are, or at least you would like to be a Sabres fan. Okay. Anyway, this team ain't giving nobody a reason to be a fan, but 4-0 at home, and you don't even get a point. Like the vibes from the West Coast trip, gone, dude. The benefit of the doubt, because last week they could return home after the West Coast. They played Minnesota really well. I mean, they threw the kitchen sink. They just couldn't score a goal. I'm like, well, whatever, who cares? Then they come back from 3-1 down against Vancouver to at least get a point. Like, all right, things going to be all right. Then they stink the next night in New York, back to back. I keep giving them excuses, whether they deserve them or not. This game, though, might have been it, dude. I know it's a good team on the other side, a great player who dominated, but what are you thinking as you're watching this game? What's going through your mind while you're watching? It's like, is this real life if you're a hockey fan? I
missed the first period. I watched the second 2 periods, so blame me, right? I turned it on, and I'm the bad luck charm. They're not. I don't know who said it first on Twitter. I saw it there. They're not a serious organization. They just aren't. They are an unserious franchise. They are, along with the New York Jets, the worst run professional sports teams in North America. And I just don't know how you could argue it. You could change coaches, you could change general managers. There is a aura of just suckiness that just hangs over the franchise, that it just infects everyone as soon as they get there. And I don't know how to explain it, and I don't know how to fix it. And I don't cover them day to day. So I don't really have any insight at all as to why that is. But I do get to watch it as a fan. And, it's like, if you would see some of my unhinged tweets that don't get sent, that Vancouver game was a great example. They're down 3-1 and I'm ready to just rip off a bunch of tweets, and I don't. And because they actually came back and finally got a point out of it. But I was done with them after that Islanders game. I mean, I don't care that it's a back-to-back. You're the youngest roster in the NHL again, forever. So you should have legs. You can't ever win a second game of a back-to-back. You can barely win a first game of a back-to-back. I think this year they finally did that. How much time do we have? Because this rant is you just go on and on and on. It is just maddening beyond belief. And I think the most frustrating thing is that nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to be done. Nothing's going to be different. There is no trade coming. There is no general manager change coming. There is no head coach change coming, which I'm not in favor of. I tweeted that I feel bad for Lindy Ruff.
I was going to ask you about that.
Go ahead.
You said that. That's the tweet that resonated with me. You said, I feel sorry for Lindy Ruff. And I did. I was following your Twitter and some of the mentions, and a lot of people were like, they were pushing back on that you shouldn't feel sorry for Lindy Ruff. I'm with you, though. I do feel sorry for him. I know what he signed up for, but I'm not sure that he knew that these were the players. You know what I mean? Like, this is what they're made of.
I mean, listen, he knew what he was signing up for. He should have, right? And that's a valid point. I get it. That's a valid critique. I also, and you talked about being old, and we're old. I laugh now because this is one of those moments where it does make me feel old. I'm wondering with some of these people on Twitter who are responding to me and saying well, you shouldn't feel bad for him. Like, do they even know who Lindy Ruff is? Like, they might be in their 20s. They might not have any recollection of what Lindy Ruff has meant to this franchise. But I don't remember what the number was. I remember seeing it at the beginning of the season. But between being a player and being a coach, he's been involved in, I want to say it's more than half of the games in the entire history of the franchise.
Right.
That's incredible. That's insane, right? I mean, he is the Buffalo Sabres. And yes, I know they didn't seal the deal and win a Stanley Cup when he was the head coach, but to say that he isn't a legend of the franchise is wrong. It's just wrong. I mean, it's just, as much as that can be objective, it's objective, right? I mean, that would be like saying that Jim Kelly and Thurman Thomas aren't legends of the Buffalo Bills because they didn't win. Like, they are. And that's what Lindy Ruff is to the Sabres. And so to see him have to deal with this group of just absolute underachievers has just got, it's tough. It's tough to see. It's like, and yeah, I do wonder, why did he sign up for this? Why did he want to be involved with this? Like, did he not realize the scope of the problems in the organization? Is he just cashing a check? I don't think that's what it is. I think he's doing everything he can to figure it out. I'm sure he is. And so that's why I feel bad for the guy, because it's like, he's going to have this on his resume that he came back here and even he couldn't fix these bums.
Yeah. Look, last point that I got here, I'm going to take two players that are good players. They're not quote unquote superstar players by any means. And to me, this is the state of the Buffalo Sabres in a nutshell and why things feel like they're never going to get better. One of them is Bo Byram. All right. So you trade Middlestat, you get Byram. He's been pretty good at times. At times he's been really good, but whatever, how do you feel about him? Let's just, for the sake of discussion, let's say that you do think he's good, right? The second he could get out of Buffalo, guess where he's going? He's not resigning with this team. He's not taking a contract here. He's going to run for Dodge the second he gets an opportunity. I think he's going to be a restricted free agent after this year. Probably sign a 1-year deal at some point. He'll have to or whatever. He'll be bouncing in 2 years. And then I look at a guy like Jason Zucker, who I was not a big fan of during free agency. I'm like, this is the big move? Really? 1 year, $5 million. This guy, well, it turns out he's been playing pretty damn well. He's just playing himself into a better contract somewhere else next year because, again, as soon as he hits free agency, he's going to bounce. This is an organization right now. You said it, and I think it was Chad on Twitter who might have said it too yesterday. It's just not a serious organization. It's an unserious organization right now. And these guys, they can't get guys, and when they do get them, they're not going to stay. They're going to want to leave. Right? You draft and develop Reinhardt and Eichel and these guys, and they don't want to be here. And I just think that cycle, it just feels like it's never going to end right now.
Yeah, and I think you were right. I think we should give credit to Chad. Excuse me. I think that is where I saw that first, and it's the perfect way to kind of encapsulate where this team is. And and listen, I freely admit I don't cover the team. I don't study the advanced stats all that closely. For me, it's mostly eyeball test, right? And so I think Byram has been fine. The issue that I see is you've got Dylan Cousins, who just seemingly doesn't know what to do. You got Jack Quinn, who I just, for the life of me, can't understand. Like, even when he came back last year off of being hurt, he looked 10 times better than he looks right now. You've got, to me, Dahlin has just been a massive disappointment. Maybe he's been hurt all year, right? You know, he goes out with back spasms yesterday, and Lindy says that it's related to his preseason injury. I don't know that you're getting from Dahlin what you need to get. Like, he's not, is he an $11 million a year defenseman? I know that, you know, I've said some things about him on Twitter and people have pushed back and showed me the advanced stats that say he's fine, whatever. Okay. But he doesn't look to me like he's $11 million. He didn't look like Quinn Hughes for the Canucks, who, you know, they couldn't take the puck from. Their best players just aren't good enough. That's the problem, right? So that's the coach, you know, that's why the coach almost doesn't matter, right? Because Granato couldn't do it. Lindy Ruff is proving that he can't do it. Their best players just aren't good enough. Dylan Cousins isn't good enough. Jack Quinn isn't good enough. Owen Power isn't good enough. You go down the list, all of these guys are stagnant or regressing. Who's getting better? Luukkonen, the goalie. UPL is getting better. Tage Thompson maybe is getting better. You know, he disappears at times. You know, I know he's dealt with injuries, whatever. I think they should have made Tuck the captain. I think Dahlin is proving to be maybe not ready for that. Maybe the pressure of being the captain is weighing on him. Talking with some of the guys that cover the team and, you know, the frustration that he's dealing with and how maybe that's bleeding into some of his game. I don't even remember what your original question was. I'm just going off on a tangent. But it's just,
well, that's the perfect way to end this segment, doing it up as funny because you're going over all these underachievers. And in my mind, I'm thinking the whole time, well, you know, Matthias Samuelsson got like $30 million for after what, 50, 60 games or some stupid shit like that.
I even forgot about him because he hurt all the time. And your point about Zucker, I mean, what he's doing is just, you know, they're going to trade him for a 3rd round pick at the deadline, whatever.
You said you feel sorry for Lindy Ruff. I feel sorry for Jay Skurski because I had him all in a good mood, talking Bills, Micah Hyde, good vibes, playing a clip from the summer in Imperial Pizza where he was spot on analysis with his football team. And then I throw some Buffalo Sabres at him to ruin his night. Anyway, I do appreciate you very much, Jay, as always, buddy.
Happy to be with you, buddy, all the time.
All right. Thank you one more time to Jay Skurski from the Buffalo News. That was a fun interview. Tell me how you really feel about the Buffalo Sabres, Jay. Why don't you? Appreciate it. I love Jay's honesty. He's always been that way too, man. And some really good insight, and some really good insight on the Buffalo Bills as well. Loved that anecdote that he told us, what Von Miller told him regarding the sack that Greg Rizzo got on Sunday night. Kind of really, like I said, it really puts a stamp on the type of team that this Buffalo Bills 2024 edition feels like. Anyway, that's going to do it for today's show. Got one more for the week. Tomorrow, I'm going to have Blaine Grisak from the Turf Show Times. That is the LA Rams SB Nation page. I'm going to talk to Blaine. We're going to do a Bills-Rams preview. I'll get some Rams perspective, of course, from him, but we'll talk Bills-Rams, keys of the game for both teams. I got my usual 3 bowl predictions. I'll try to suck a few out of Blaine as well. And then, of course, a game pick. So that'll be on the show tomorrow. And thank you very, very much, as always, for watching, for listening. If you have not yet subscribed, please, please, please go ahead and do that right now. I say it all the time. Subscribe to both the video and the audio, because we're doing different things that you'll only get on the video side. And we're going to be doing full episodes and bonus episodes that you're only going to get on the audio side. So just take 30 seconds, go find Talking Buffalo wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure you hit that follow button. Again, until tomorrow, Blaine Grisak, Turf Show Times. Talk to you then.